everybody, and welcome to our live Mental Strength for Challenging Seasons. Struggling to stay positive when life feels hard or finding yourself overwhelmed by challenges you didn't expect. You're not alone. Mental strength isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about learning how to keep going, think clearly, and support yourself through difficult times. And over the next 30 minutes, we're going to explore questions like, how do I stay mentally strong when life feels uncertain? What helps me manage difficult thoughts and emotions? How can I keep moving forward when motivation feels low? And what small things help build resilience during hard times? And if you've ever felt stuck, emotionally drained, or unsure how to cope when life feels challenging, this session will give you practical ways to strengthen your mindset and support yourself through difficult seasons. Before we start our conversation, though, and in case this is the first time we're meeting, let us tell you who we are. My name is Newman, and I help my clients who are fed up and frustrated to create the change they need so they can have the life they want. Some people come to me knowing exactly what they want, yet they're unsure how to achieve it. Others feel like something is holding them back and they can't quite figure out what it is. Different starting points, same outcome. They want things to change, and that's what I help them with. And this is Sarah.
Oh, hello, Maria, and hello to everybody listening and joining us today. So I'm Sarah Coward from Your Best Mind Hypnotherapy, and I'm a clinical solution-focused hypnotherapist, and I help people and teams reduce their stress, build resilience and confidence, and help people perform at their best before burnout hits. So I run sort of personalised one-to-one hypnotherapy sessions in my garden room in Clevedon, North Somerset, but I also work online and I help teams and workplaces with their community and well-being as well. And I'm also running relaxation well-being days at the moment. So busy life, but it's a topic that I'm very glad to be discussing with you today, Maria.
Yes, and I think we'll have lots to talk about. We have some people who have already joined us. So hello, Robin, and hello, Bridget. Please say hello if you're on the line with us so that we know who's here. And throughout this, it might be a conversation between myself and Sarah, but we would like you to join in. So if you have any comments, any questions, any experiences you want to share with us, then please write in the comments and we can bring you into the conversation. So let's start. Sarah, in your opinion, tell me what you think can make someone's life feel uncertain.
I think that's a really good question. And I think, as human beings, I think we can all feel uncertain at various times in our lives. And particularly through times that things happen, don't they? Those I always sort of think it's the unexpected, unwelcome, and uninvited changes that actually really affect us, and that can affect us quite badly. And one thing all those types of situations have in common is it triggers the worry, the anxiety. And the reason it's doing that is because it's triggering what's going on. Sort of the fear is rising in us because the brain doesn't like things to change. So this is why we get very anxious when we're going through really challenging situations, whether that's, quite big life events, divorce, loss, things like this, or even simpler things like, things that can be quite big, like losing your job, or, coping with moving to a new area. I think anything where something shifts and your brain, is so used to the norm, it kind of gets used to a pattern. It gets used to things being very steady and repetitive. It wants things to be repetitive. and it wants things to be calm and consistent. And then suddenly something happens and we're in a shift, and we've got to kind of figure out our new reality. And I think that's how it feels. Certainly, I think when I think about my life and the course of my life and my business and my work, that's how it feels for me. You have to find that new reality and face that new reality. And I think that's the difficult thing. So I think uncertainty is with us, whether we like it or not, sadly.
I totally agree. And I think there's the difference between life can feel uncertain when something suddenly happens and you're not expecting it. And also it can be just like small incremental changes that over time become big, as you know, it's quite a few things that together become a big thing. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, hang on a second. Well, when did this happen? When did I start to feel unsteady and unable to deal with my life on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. And Maria, you know, I see many people in my private one-to-one clinic, and I talk to many of my clients about that very situation. It's when we get to that point of overwhelm. You know, we are, many of us, practical, competent, capable, probably women who are listening, but maybe hopefully there's some men maybe joining us as well. But we're all the same. You know, most of us are very adaptable and very capable in our lives. We go through huge amounts in our lives, and we generally can cope. But there's usually a point, there's usually something that sort of builds up we talk about stress buckets in my clinic a lot. And the idea of the stress bucket, for those that don't know, is it's this sort of primitive part of ourselves, the part that's responsible for our safety and survival. And if it gets too overwhelmed and too full, there can be many, many little things that contribute to that. But sometimes there can just seem to be the one thing that just, it's the too much, and our capacity sort of overflows, and we end up just not able to be quite the same as we were. We're not leading here with this intellectual brain. We're kind of more stuck here when things are very uncertain. I mean, I feel that a lot. I've felt that a lot in the last few weeks, Maria, as I've been coming to terms with a bit of unexpected eye surgery. And I've really noticed it, how this part of me is really reared up. It's like, you know, it's really coming a go. It's like, oh, you know, things have been tough, and I've been worried about my health for a little bit, and worried, and my brain is bringing up these worry monsters. And I'm just like, hang on, just calm down a bit. You know, what's the reality of the situation? Because I know it's fear that's got its grip. Yeah. And it's noticing that helps, I think, actually.
I think you're right. It's noticing it, is accepting that you're in a moment of, I'm not quite sure what to do next, because I've gone from, like you said, routine. I know what I'm doing, to now I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And I feel like there's a lack of control. And I think I know the action I want to take, but I'm not confident in taking it. I feel uncertain. And it's in those times, like you've said, where we've got to show ourselves some compassion, not to beat ourselves up. And I love that you're talking about the brain, because I'm fascinated by the brain. And I know that, you know, it's that inner voice. It's neither good nor bad. It's just doing its job, which is to keep us safe, because obviously we have to survive. It's all about survival. So when that voice comes up, it's just like a check. I've started calling it, it's a checkpoint. It's going, are you sure? Is this right? Have you considered? And it's like, well, have I considered? Okay, what's going on for me now? Why do I feel unsafe? Why has fear reared its head? What do I think is going to happen next? And then go, is it true? Is it helpful? What is a more useful thought?
Yeah, I love that, Maria. Gosh, I think there's clearly a lot of resonance, and you know, in our work. And I think that's hugely helpful, because it is naming things. But it's allowing feelings to come. You know, I think sometimes people are afraid of showing emotion, or they feel not allowed to show emotion. But actually just allow it, let it flow, recognize what's behind this emotion. You know, where am I? Why am I? And then think about, hang on, what could help me just feel a bit kind of comforted or able to cope a little bit better in that moment. And I like what you're doing, rationalizing, noticing thought. You know, thought is just, it is the brain constructing that thought. And oftentimes it is our own worst enemy when we are under the stress. Don't forget, it is a stressful situation, and our bodies have been over sort of flooded with cortisol and adrenaline when we are facing uncertainty. And I think it is something to all acknowledge, that it's our human response in this moment, and we shouldn't beat ourselves up for that, you know. But how we can frame that, reframe it, that's the tricky thing. But it's something that we do need to, if we can practice.
Yeah.
And I think that's my advice really, is you have to practice it. And I like what you've done, because you've given it definition and like almost like a process.
Yeah.
To help you kind of get through it. And I think it's really interesting, because do you know what? Last week when I was feeling particularly low, because my eyesight had gone so blurry in one eye, I was just felt so vulnerable, you know. And what I kept thinking was, I've got to answer 3 questions every day to get through this. 3 small questions. You know, what is going well today, however tiny? How am I coping today? Whatever tiny thing I've done to cope. And what am I grateful for? And those things have kept me kind of, those repetitive questions are actually very helpful when you are going through quite a lot of change and you're a little bit feeling a bit more uncertain than normal.
Yeah, and I think that's a lovely comment from Robin. It is about letting go of judgment and beating yourself up, especially if you're typically used to being really confident, capable, assertive, and all of a sudden something feels like it's just to pull the rug from under you. It is about going, so I'm experiencing something, and it's okay. These feelings are a way of, and I think Robin, I like this, these feelings are a way of my body telling me that I just don't feel like I'm in alignment. Something has happened, and your body's communicating, saying, maybe you need to take care of yourself. Maybe you've put yourself on the back burner, and it's time you put yourself up front and center and gone, okay, then I need some space. I need some time. And I know in particular what's difficult when you're a confident individual, and I'm thinking about myself, is you don't want to tell anybody else what's going on, because you're thinking, oh, what would they think? You don't want to share with other people and ask for help, because you're like, well, they think I'm this person, and if all of a sudden I put my hands up, they'll then think I'm this type of person. So a lot of it for me, and I've experienced this with my daughter as well, as soon as you voice things, get it out of your head, voice it, share it, then you start to feel relief naturally.
Yeah, absolutely you do. So in whatever form that feels good for you, you know, and I encourage my clients to journal, or to write, or to even just speak into, say, your phone, or, you know, however you need to express it. I'm actually quite an introverted person, Maria. So I'm a bit opposite to you, but I tend to put a lot of, I'm like many people, I probably overthink quite a lot. And I channel thought into things like, for example, poetry. So I do a lot of poetry when I'm under stress and emotions are high, and I channel it in that way, because words have always been my thing. You know, I get huge joy out of words and language. So the reason I mention that is small things that make you feel more like yourself. You know, small things that make you feel good about who you are and what you're doing in your day, that they matter. You know, those small little things that bring you a little bit of you're controlling it. You know, you're in control of that. You can put some structure into your day. You know, because obviously when things are very uncertain, it takes us out of things of our control. You know, these are things that are not our control. But we've got to find a way to cope with the day-to-day once that big shift is happening. And the brain loves it if you go back to those small things you can control. So that's what I try to remember. What are the small moments that make me feel like me? And then I try to apply that, you know.
I think that's great. And I think the word you use there probably sums it up. When we're feeling uncertain, it's because all of a sudden we are not in control anymore.
No.
So bringing that back in and starting to focus on the things that we can control helps to start to give us back the safety. And I think it's also trying to counteract some of the chemicals in our body that naturally start to bring us down. So doing things that make us feel happy, you know, really getting the dopamine and the oxytocin and the endorphins going. And naturally, so, you know, go and give somebody a cuddle if you're a tactile person, or go and snuggle into somebody that's going to give you that affection to make you feel okay. I mean, if you've got a pet, give your pet a cuddle, go and stroke your cat, stroke your dog, whatever gets the happy hormones pumping again. Go and do something, like you've said, that brings you pleasure. So, you know, you were talking about poetry writing. What is it, the thing that brings you pleasure? Go and do that. And naturally, all right, it might only be temporary. Over time, though, you'll get back to where you want to go by trying to inject those mood boosters that are in you to bring you up from where you currently are.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Maria. It's vital, actually, for, you know, the brain, as we said earlier, the brain craves repetition, consistency, pattern. So if you can bring a little bit of that back in your day-to-day whilst you're going through challenge, and I think it's worth reframing thought at this time as well, because it's what you're sort of telling yourself that has a huge bearing on how you cope, better or not, with uncertainty. So it's worth remembering, the more you focus on positive affirmation, you know, positive belief, you know, in other words, you know, this too shall pass. What will, you know, there will be a time that things are different. Things can get better. And you remind yourself of the difficult times in your life that you have previously survived. You know, I'm a huge believer in that kind of thinking. Now, it's not something I perhaps always have been so strong in, but it's something I've practiced as I have been through more challenging times in my adult life. And I think that is where real resilience starts to kind of come in, because you draw on your life, your past life, but you don't let it, you've got to stop the thought from overdwelling. You know, that's what I find is so important. We have to bring ourselves to that day, to the here and now, as much as we fully can. You know, because there's no point, we cannot ever go back. And that's what half of therapeutic help is all about, is learning to let go of some of the past and how you can accept and where you're going in the future. And that's what I love about being a hypnotherapist, because that's what we're focused on, where we're going, not where we've been. So that's very much my philosophy of life. I've always had it years before I was a hypnotherapist, but I think it goes back to when you build resilience through challenging times. It really does.
I like what you've said there about affirmations, because
Yeah.
when it comes to affirmations, I think people think that they've got to have this wordy sentence that they repeat to themselves and they don't quite mean it yet, but if they repeat it over it, so start small. If you're in a place where you don't feel positive, what feels okay right now? What feels doable, as if yes, you can believe it? And then obviously through repeating that and then maybe slightly adapting it and making it even more positive, you're hardwiring those pathways in your brain, which is actually getting you to think differently and to have a different outlook in life. It's just, you need to start from the right place at the starting line, rather than saying, right, I'm already going to be at the finish line, and try and get yourself in that place from day dot. You're starting at the beginning of the race. Pick an affirmation that you believe can be true now. I just want to take this moment to also say there are a few people who are on the call. So please, as Robin has been doing, if you've got a comment or a question, please feel free to share them, because it's nice to see what you think of what we're talking about. If there's anything in particular that Sarah and I can help you with, so please join in. The other thing I want to mention, Sarah, when you're talking about thoughts, and something that I work with my clients on, is the fact that, and this sort of blows people's mind, every situation we find ourselves in is neutral until we give it meaning. And that can be, like you said, the thoughts that naturally pop up in your head when you're in something, or just as important, the words that are coming out of our mouths. So it's not just the thoughts, it's the words. And if we can catch those and use that as an opportunity, as you've said, to reframe them, then you notice other things change. Because, as I've said, you have a situation, you give it meaning, then that determines how you show up in the world, which determines the actions you take, because your feelings are then driving things and leads ultimately to the experience we have in life. So thought, words, meaning is so important, and we get the opportunity to decide what meaning we want to attach to things. That's the control we have.
Yeah, and I think that's so important to hold on to when you feel like life has shifted, you are feeling like things are out of control, and you can think like crisis thinking can you can go from naught to crisis thinking in just a day or two, and it's remembering that that's a normal process. What are the small things can I do to help redress that balance when it has overwhelmed me? So I really like what you're saying, and it resonates hugely with me, particularly during the last 10 days or so. I've been using every bit of my knowledge of how my beautiful brain is working under stress, and trying to apply it, because I've noticed myself under stress. And the beauty of that is, once you learn to notice yourself and be kind to yourself, you can do the small things. It's like I say to sometimes my clients, you almost need to be ready for that moment. You almost need to have almost like a toolkit of, what do I reach for? What is it I can add in when the going gets tough? And that's what I remember. I think of in those terms. I think of, what am I adding in? What's the small thing I need to do differently today? Because that's how I get a bit better, or I get that calmness again. Because a lot of it is resetting that fear response. So if I can help myself get calmer, I know I'm already winning. So that's something I think people perhaps should ask themselves today is, what do you do to promote that calm? Because it isn't just about what we do, it's about how we reset and cope as a human to not feel that threat response quite so intensely. So, I mean, I think that's something that people aren't great at, and that's something that they feel guilty about. So they have to try to sort of think, well, hang on, if I could give myself 5-10 minutes today of calm, what would it look like?
And I think the other thing we've demonstrated here is, you and I, we are capable in our business. However, whether it's in business or in personal life, we're still human. Stuff still happens that feels like it's pulled the rug from under ourselves. So we too, we're not super coaches that go, well, do you know what? Every day I'm really positive. Everything's fine. I don't need to look after myself. No, we're human. Things happen where we take a dip and have to sort of go, let's just stop a second. What's going on here? What's my brain telling me? What do I know to be reality? What actions do I need to take that are going to serve me the best?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you're a sole trader, you have to learn to, I think it's leaning and look for the help where it's there, and that's something I love. People have shown up for me in the last 10 days, and it's been extraordinary. The kindness of other human beings when you are a bit more vulnerable, and it's just letting people in sometimes. Like you said earlier, I like that. Just saying to people, actually, I am struggling a bit. Actually, I have had a difficult few days. Those are being very honest and vulnerable. We can share that. It doesn't make us any weaker. It just means we're human. And actually, we're reaching out for other humans because we do get very much lifted by the support of others. And restore, I think restorative, how to restore to oneself is a very interesting question, but we probably haven't got time to discuss that here. But I do like the idea that we must allow other people in and be grateful where that help is forthcoming. So listening and talking is another very important point. When you are going through a lot, it's no weakness to actually reach out. If you do need to speak to someone, then it is actually a sign of huge strength, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you. So we are coming to the end of our time together. So thank you, everybody, for being here, for joining in, for listening. And before we go, though, I'd just like to say, Sarah, how would you like to close the session? How can people stay connected with you if they aren't already?
Oh, well, thank you, Maria. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here this lunchtime. If anyone's interested in solution-focused hypnotherapy and the work I do, you can find me at www.yourbestmind.co.uk, and you can come and find out a bit more about me and book a 20-minute free chat if you'd like to discuss my services. And I'd love to meet you and help further.
And for me, if you are ready to stop getting stuck in your head and start achieving what matters, I am running a workshop that's online, 12 o'clock till 1 o'clock. It's on the 23rd of June. We'll be on Zoom. It's a very safe space. It's only £20, and I will put the links for both my workshop and also to get connected to Sarah and to find out more about how you can work with Sarah in the comments. So that just leaves me to say, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And thank you, Sarah, for joining me on this live.
Welcome. Thank you, Maria. It's been really lovely, really interesting chat. Thanks very much.
You are most welcome. And see you on our next live, everyone.